Hey everyone, Vineet this side, and today I'm joined by a very special guest over there. William Spencer, the skate ninja. Like many of you know, he's an absolutely amazing skateboarder, and the things he does with his skateboard are truly mind-blowing. Well, that's not it, guys. William has also performed stunts for Andrew Garfield on the amazing Spider-Man movies, and today he's here to share his experience about what it is like to be the real hero behind the mask. So, I have this first question for you. Back in 2010 or 2011, when you got to know this for the first time that you'll be performing stunts in the upcoming Spider-Man movie. So how were you feeling at that time? Because like you've all seen the previous Spider-Man films, and in the next movie, you're going to be a part of it yourself. So what was going through your mind at that time?
I think for me, because I actually was supposed to have an audition, I was supposed to go and have an audition for the movie. A good friend of mine, Ilram Choi, told me about the audition. He's the one who wanted me to go and suggested me. And so what ended up happening is that I actually missed the call to do the audition. I
Oh,
didn't realize I was supposed to be there. I was actually in Colorado, where I'm from. And so when they called me from the audition, I thought they were going to call me to tell me when it was, but instead they just called me the day of to ask me if I was coming to the audition. And of course, I couldn't fly there because it's quite a distance. In the U.S., that's pretty far, and so I was really sad to not get it, like to not even get to audition. That sort of months went by, and then later on down the line, when Andrew Garfield thought that Peter Parker should skateboard, then he started looking people up on the internet that he thought skateboarded like Spider-Man. And he came across my videos, and then he said, okay, well, this guy skateboards like Spider-Man. It would be cool if he could, help in the movie and stunt double me doing that. And so it went from like not having the movie and kind of like being sad to just all of a sudden being on the movie. And so it just felt unreal because no one heard about it. No one knew anything about any new Spider-Man movie. So I just felt like the whole thing was not real until it came out in the movie theater, because you're on a movie, you're making a movie, and I made many movies, but the feeling that I got was just kind of like, I would tell people, yeah, I actually stunt doubled on a new Spider-Man movie, and I did some skateboarding, and then I actually stunt doubled as Spider-Man. I kept going on the movie, that even my family was like, yeah, cool, because the movie hadn't come out yet, so they just didn't. I don't think any of us really realized it. We were very out of touch with it. So yeah, it felt surreal, and it didn't really hit me until even the second movie came out, and then people kind of knew about the movie and were looking forward to it, and I did tons of press tours about it, and then it became more real when I saw people's reaction in New York, so.
yeah, we all love your work very much on both the films. So my next question for you is that like I recently saw Andrew Garfield mentioning you in some of his interviews. So and like we have known this from some time that you guys share some sort of brotherhood. So what do you think of Andrew Garfield as an actor, as an individual, and as a friend? So how is it like between you guys?
Oh, between Andrew and I?
Yes.
Um, it's funny. We kind of have a a very interesting relationship for one reason alone, is that he sort of picked me to do it, where he was making a movie and he thought, oh, what's going to make this movie interesting, or what is good for this character? And so when he looked at my videos and things, he was looking at my skateboarding, but he was looking at me, and as he developed the character, which is very flattering, but I think he wanted to kind of base it on some of my mannerisms and things that I don't know why, but I don't know if he just liked it and he thought, oh, that's a good attitude, or that's sort of like a skateboard attitude. But he kind of molded Peter Parker a little bit around it, which is obviously deeply flattering. But in that, because he chose me, my opinion to him about the performance, about how things should be done, how Spider-Man is or whatever, because I'm used to, in skateboarding, everybody has an opinion. You just say what you think to your friends when you go filming. You just say, it's not good yet, or you could do better, or let's try more. And because he chose me, he and I took on a relationship that I was very honest with him, and he was very honest with me about what we were trying to make, so that even though it's always good to have respect for each other and people that you work with, but we had more of like a brotherly, like, you're going to do it like that? Oh, I don't know. And he would be like, what? That's how you're going to do it? And then it became like a funny, like you fight with family about what's best or what do we cook for dinner. And so it was very like normal because, you know, he's a great actor and he has much, like so much skill at it. But at the same time, the taste that it makes, you know, that it can make, like making a movie, it still takes taste to figure out what should be there. And so it was fun to argue with him about what should be in the movie or what, well, maybe he does it like this, or maybe this is cool. That I found it enjoyable that we never lied to each other. And if we didn't like what the other person was doing, I didn't have to pretend like I thought it was good when it wasn't, or he didn't have to pretend like, oh, well, all your skateboarding is awesome. He was like, oh, I don't know if I like that. And so I said, okay, well, I'll do different tricks. In fact, the skateboard sequence they first made me film in the movie, he wasn't happy with it, and the filmmakers weren't, because I was kind of like, you know, I was having to follow what other people were telling me to do because I'm respectful and I didn't want to step on anyone's toes. So I kind of made a sequence where they told me to. And later on, he's like, hey, you know, the skateboarding sequence needs to be reshot. And I really appreciated that because the second time around, I got a chance to really make it better, make it what it could be. And even with the limited time and things they gave, it was still much, much better. And a lot of that had to do with him correcting and going, William, I think you could do better. And so he and I have that type of relationship, and we always have that. You just be honest, because at the end of the day, we want to make Spider-Man look good. I don't care about looking good. He doesn't care about looking good. He wants Spider-Man to be amazing because that's what Spider-Man is supposed to be, you know? So.
Absolutely. Question for you is that, you know, like, you have shot for two of the movies, and, you know, like, both the Amazing Spider-Man movies are full of action. So, which, you know, like, a particular sequence that you feel like was the most challenging one or the most interesting one to do?
I think, you know what's hard is I think there were a lot of sequences that between all of us that were practicing, you know, I think one of the hardest ones, and it's actually not a scene that I did, but Ilram did some really big swings in New York underneath a bridge. And I always thought that was because I also got to try that. And Ilram did practice much more than me on that swing. Experientially, he had a lot more experience with that than I did, but I still thought he did it elegantly and beautifully for what it was. And I was always really impressed with how hard it was because I didn't have any practice. I had to get in there when we were in New York and try it out. And I thought it was still, you know, and I've done a lot of things and I still thought it was really hard. And so I always impressed with the skill that he brought to that, you know? Oh, and so, oh, did I lose you? Oh, hi. And so I was always very impressed with that. But there are other sequences. I mean, doing the skateboard sequence all in one day, and even though I had help, there was a couple of tricks that Alex Olson did. And even with help and all the planning, doing that skateboard sequence in only one day was very hard because it was the amount of time we really had in the prep that I usually take to make great skateboard tricks. I usually have a lot of time and to be very careful about it. So it was really hard to do that in that amount of time, you know? And even in like, you know, there were so many sequences in those movies. And actually the sequence that was I feel like one of the most interesting ones for me, at least, is when there were sequences, you know, fighting with the lizard, kind of getting thrown around the room, that it's not that they were so hard to film, just getting thrown into stuff. And I remember I was doing takes where I'm supposed to jump off a mini tramp. I'm jumping across the room to a set of lockers and then jumping across the room. And an imaginary CG tail of the lizard is supposed to knock me. And my neck hurts until today because of that sequence of being pulled onto my head over and over and over again, you know? So, yeah, I mean, there was a lot of difficult sequences. But those are some of them that were, you know, were hard. But all of it was hard. I mean, Ilram and David Elston, who got the double in the first movie, they had a lot of sequences that, you know, they're doing fight scenes and stuff that was freezing in the middle of winter at Universal Studios. And it gets really cold because it's a very low to the ground there that's like next to a mountain, and it's always cold in that backlot. But Yeah, they did. There's a lot of cool sequences. Yeah.
So, we all know that you have performed stunts on various other projects and movies as well. So, performing stunts as Spider-Man, is it physically challenging as compared to the other characters? Is it
Yeah, it's physically. Yeah, it's
yeah,
really physically challenging because you can't really see very good because the eyes, and they do a good job. They do like kind of mesh covers for the eyes, but you still don't have much peripheral. Even with the second movie and the bigger eyes, still there it's like you have to really look if you're flipping or upside down, you have to really put your head back or else you cannot see past the mask, and it's very hard. And then second, when you're running in the suit and you're out of breath or whatever, you're still trying to push your air through a mask that's underneath a shield and then also has an outer layer that's like just hard for your oxygen to get in and out. And especially if I was like swinging or ratcheting or jumping or flying, you have on a harness that had a special like Velcro, is basically stuck with Velcro, so it was more low profile, so you couldn't see it under the suit. And they have to tie it extra tight to be careful because it's Velcro and it's not the actual buckles. For safety, they have to do it extra tight. And so you can be running down the street super hard and do this whole action scene, and then your lungs don't expand all the way. So you're not breathing very much, You're not breathing much. It can only expand as much as the harness, which to be safe and to hold you in there is for, but just not much oxygen, So, yeah.
so like you are stuntable. You are stuntable for an actor. So, what does it feel like to be the guy behind the mask? While the actor is the main face of the movie, but you're the guy behind the mask. So, how does it feel like you think that the stuff you guys do, the stunt doubles do, deserve a little more recognition and credit?
I mean, I think how I kind of feel about it is this is, Spider-Man is a superhero. He's super. He is not human. He is extraordinary. He can do things that none of us could ever do, right? So when Andrew and I were doing the movies, to me, I never felt like, oh, I'm the guy behind the guy. I always felt like it is someone who's not real, someone who's incredible. It needs to take two regular people to make one incredible thing, right? Or three people, or how many people that they have to stunt double that make sure that if someone gets hurt, that everyone is okay, that they have two units going and there's a big stunt here and a big stunt there. So really, and I think everyone can agree on it, when you're making someone larger than life, it takes more than one person to do it because no one is that incredible to do it all. And if you are Tom Cruise or someone, that guy still has stunt doubles that always people will say in all the memes. Same with Jackie Chan. Oh, well, it's so funny because Jackie doesn't have any doubles. I know a lot of Jackie's doubles, at least one. The point is testing a gag before it gets tried so that they don't die or hurt themselves. They do that for insurance. They do that to save money, right? So that you can't have the actor break his ankle. No, that doesn't work. But what you can do is to have a guy jump off that ledge before you to make sure that you can do it. And that is also stunt doubling. So for me, stunt doublings are the stunt doubles in general, and stunt doubling is one of the most useful and one of the things that people need the most, and they don't talk about very much. But the world is changing and people are starting to realize there's a lot of pride in it's okay that it takes more than one person to make a superhero.
Yeah, you guys are absolutely amazing, and the things you do are they are really magical, I would say, because it's not very easy for a normal person to just go out there and do the things that you all do. So my next question for you is that nearly 3 years on the set of the Amazing Spider-Man movies, and I'm pretty sure there must be they were full of memorable moments. So if you would like to recall any one particular day which you feel was the closest to you.
I missed the very last part. Say it one more time.
I said that, would you like to recall any particular day from the sets of the Amazing Spider-Man movies, which feels particularly close to you?
Like which day would I recall the most?
Yeah, something memorable, something special.
You know what was so memorable about that movie is that we were actually in more than one shot really up on top of real tall buildings. We were really out on ledges. Like we were really have our harnesses on and they're like safetying us, but we're really like just that high off the ground in New York City. Like it just felt so real because you're like it's windy up there and it's cold up there and like just I was like, wow, this is like none of this is fake in the sense of like experiencing something that few people get to go to the top of the building and be able to see out and see that view. I thought it was pretty amazing, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So my next question for you is a bit tricky one. Like 20 years in the past 20 years, there have been three Spider-Man actors. There have been many Spider-Man movies. Which is your favorite Spider-Man actor and your favorite Spider-Man movie?
I mean, here's what's tricky about this question, and this is how I'll answer it, is that I loved Spider-Man so much as a kid that anyone who plays Spider-Man, as long as the character is in a movie, I love it. That's the problem because Toby's performance as Peter Parker and just like so likable, so lovable, so awesome. It went in his time period. I loved those movies. I just thought, oh, this is the coolest thing ever to see Spider-Man in a movie. Like I didn't care. And when the Andrew ones came along and I saw that he was like deeply committed to the comic books about making the character as much like it as he could and not being afraid to not being like summertime fun time comic book movie, that he was committed to making the character look the way that it should for the fans. I loved him for it. And I find it hard to pick one because with Tom Holland's Peter Parker, he's deeply, you can tell that he's playing a younger Spider-Man.
Yeah.
He's playing a Spider-Man that like he knows less, he's been through less, but you can just tell he's a good person and he's trying to do the right thing. And that character resonates so much with me that I find it deeply hard to choose between them because of his sincerity with his Spider-Man. There's such an overlap with the three of them that I couldn't possibly say for sure, I couldn't.
Yeah, well, all the three Spider-Man actors are really great, and you can't just simply compare all three of them. They are unique in their own special ways. So, I'm not going to take much of your time. I have just one last question for you. Like in 2015, when the Amazing Spider-Man franchise got cancelled, did that affect you as an individual?
Oh,
has been a part of such a big franchise. So like
you mean when they didn't make the third movie?
Yeah, they didn't make the third movie, and there were some other planned movies as well. So like you didn't get to be a part of them because they all got cancelled. So how does that feel?
For me, I thought that the experience of doing the other two movies was such a big experience for me that I almost, if they would have made a third one, I don't, at that point in how I felt, because it's so overwhelming and you're away from your family for so long and I just didn't know how the movie was going to be or what it was going to mean, that I was, if they were going to ask me to do a third one, I'm not sure I would have said yes, because I was so overwhelmed of doing those movies back to back. And those were my first two huge movies that I had done the whole movie. Any movie like that, like at least 6 months or 8 months or 7 months with reshoots, that it's so much time that it makes you start to think about your life, not like, how do I make more money or how do I become more famous or what do I do? It makes you go, do I see my family enough? Like, am I doing the right thing with my life? Like, do I care about anything? So when that third movie didn't happen, I was sad because I always thought Andrew deserved a third movie. I always thought he deserved the redemption of getting to her dying in that movie was entirely heartbreaking. He did an incredible job of making sure you felt that with him. that I always thought it was sad because I knew he was incredible enough to deserve a third movie. But what I didn't understand is the whole backstory of why it didn't happen. And he and I never got super into it. And I didn't know if it was painful or if it was a bigger, higher up choice or whatever. But when it didn't happen, and then, you know, a few years later when they did the Tom Holland one, it made me sad because I thought, oh, did we do a bad job? Were we not supposed to, we didn't do something we were supposed to, or we're not likable enough? And then even for me personally, because Andrew, you know, told me, he was like, hey, so I'm going to kind of, if it's okay, I'm going to steal some of your mannerisms, and I'm going to make Peter Parker's clothes kind of the way you dress. And I'm just kind of going off your skateboard videos that I personally, because I, you know, in certain ways, I think we're all insecure about who we are, that I thought, did I also help? Like, of course it couldn't just be me, but I was like, did I also help people dislike Spider-Man? Am I too emo? Am I not likable? Am I too weird? And so I think all those things in the back of my mind kind of mixed around, and it made me wonder why it didn't happen. And I think in the biggest picture, the timing of things supposed to happen when they're supposed to happen, that's what it is sometimes, is that it just not meant to happen at that time. And I feel like Andrew probably felt the same way. He's like, dude, I did my best at those movies. I put my heart into it, and it wasn't received in the way that in his heart, I'm sure he intended for people to truly love it. And they didn't, you know, in the fans of like a legitimate comic book coming to life. And I don't know how much he felt conflicted about like not accomplishing it. But in the same way, I was so overwhelmed being away from my family and friends for so long at a time that I needed that break from it. I wasn't ready to do another movie. I felt like, what do I have to give to this? Am I burnt out on this? Do I deserve to like try to bring Spider-Man to life again? Like, did I do a good job last time? That all that doubt in my mind was kind of just, I kind of let it go over the years and thought, well, you know, that's too bad. And I always felt like, wow, we did do a good job, and no one seems to care or notice. And then I didn't want to be self-involved as to tell people, well, those movies were great, you should have liked them. And so with the, you know, the new movie that has come out or whatever, I'm absolutely blown away with the response, the beauty of the movie, the feeling that it gave the fans. I thought the deep sincerity that it could create with fans was utterly, and I mean this, and I don't mean to use this word in a way that doesn't unbelievable, with the sincerity of what you could have. That movie could have been so cool and fun and big, and it wasn't. It was a deeply sincere movie, and I felt like it was truly for the fans, and for the fans who are thoughtful and care that deeply and want to so badly to see their version of the hero on screen one more time. And I think it was incredible to be a part of that turnaround and people to truly appreciate the Amazing Spider-Man, both the movies that we did. I thought it was incredible. Like the amount of love I've been shown from them finishing the storyline, and like even my small part of helping to catch Mary Jane or whatever. It's crazy that people have reacted in a way that is absolutely unbelievable. Like every day I'm like, I'm sorry, is this like, did this really happen? Did they so perfectly create a film to give the most beauty and homage to the past while at the same time keeping it relevant, while at the same time making the Spider-Man truly be like in any sense brotherly? And it was beautiful. And I really appreciate the fans for showing so much post after the fact credit and love for the other movies we made. And I can't thank people enough for, I don't know, finally appreciating those movies for what they are. And here's the thing. Next time, if it takes 7 more years to be appreciated for something, I'll wait the 7 years because it's entirely worth it.
Absolutely, it's absolutely worth it. And we really love the work that you guys have done, both you and Andrew Garfield. I'm not sure if I'm supposed to talk about the new movie right now, but it was really good to have you back. Thank you very much, William, for joining me today over here, and I'm really grateful for this.